Good morning, world. I can't believe I'm here with the amazing Deborah Abbott. How are you?
And the amazing Gary. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing? Good to see your bright, smiley face. Like, you've got a great energy this morning, Debs. What's going on? How are you?
It's just the yellow shirt. No, I don't know. No, it's good. I'm just vibrating onwards and upwards, as we were saying, and the sun's out, and got lots happening this week. So I'm quite excited, actually. And I'm excited to be on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you very much. For those that might be joining us for the first time, so this is the Right Here, Right Now live chat. And it's really because, like so often, Debs, don't we? You've come from corporate, I'm still in corporate. We sort of design everything to death. And it's not always a bad thing to design, but we sort of lose the intuition. We lose that in the moment flow. So my question for you today, as people get to learn about you, is what's on your heart and mind right here, right now in this moment, Deb?
Okay, so what's on my heart and mind right here, right now? Right here, right now, I would say I think I've kind of been taking been trying to gain a bit more perspective and shifting my focus away from, what's broken, what's collapsing, and rather, how can we step aside and focus our energy on what is working and what we can be creating. You're talking about design. Mm-hmm. And also around beliefs about there's a post that came up the other day in my feed on LinkedIn, and it was the world is reigned by criminals, and I'm like, no, I don't see the human being as a criminal at all. In fact, I believe that we've got innate giving gift. Mm-hmm. So we are innately giving people, and we've just lost a lot of touch of that in all the systems and the societies that have been built over the last 10,000 years.
Oh, nice small topic for the start of the new week. I just want to say hello to Adrian. Thanks for popping along today, my friend. Where does that... I love where you're sort of pointing, there, which is this sort of, we don't come into the world as a criminal, and however someone perceives another human being as being criminal, maybe they've even committed a criminal act. I, like you, don't believe anyone comes into the world wired that way. So I'm wondering what's going on there. You mentioned about beliefs. Are there other things going on that you think are maybe influencing people to move away from that sort of connection, that understanding space?
I think it's I guess, like, in the past, I would say in the past 2 to 3 years, I've been educating myself and also experiencing and living the importance of energy. And we are all energy, all of us, each one of us, and we all vibrate at frequencies, and from day to day, and then throughout the day as well. And it's keeping a check of that, and I believe that's very much about, the start to self-awareness. Now, if we're putting all our energy onto what's wrong, what's bad, and all that, well, it's kind of pulling us down into this kind of low vibrational contractive energy. Whereas we do have, and I really do believe that we do have the choice, not only... And when I say every day, but actually every moment in the day, we can choose, we can go, self-check, wait a minute, I'm being pulled down, in this situation, let me change that. Or I'm being pulled down by this person, let me step away from them, or whatever it is. And I think it's like keeping our energy in check on a daily basis would help us move to higher vibrational frequencies where, there's opportunity, there's goodness, there's possibility, there's courage, and we can do that shift and make things happen and new things and build new structures.
God, it's so interesting. So I work in the scientific industry, as you know. I work in chemicals. I work in a very scientific industry. Yet we don't talk about energy in the way that you're describing it from a human point of view. We might talk about it from a molecular, scientific, designing a new product, or trying to be quite logical about it. But from a human point of view, we don't generally in the workplace talk about energy. And I think you're really speaking to something powerful for me, because do we ever actually stop to think, that feeling, like give a real life example. There's certain people, you get an email and your body reaction goes, or you go, oh God, or you're getting judgment in your head, or it's like, oh God, I'm going to lose an hour. That energetic sense is a thing, isn't it? Like it's not something to be ignored, I guess, something to be inquired about.
And I think it's and that's a very interesting point. So there are 2 points there that I sort of see. So you're saying that it's very scientific and it's very head based, but somebody once said to me, "We're not heads on sticks. We've got whole bodies. We've got head, we've got a heart, we've got gut, we've got hands and feet to celebrate. Why aren't we using all that?" And emails definitely only from over here. And that's why we get those reactions, because it's very often it's just like transactional communication, when that could be done. I mean, email's just such a waste of everything: space, time, energy. It just sucks the energy out of you, just like the example that you gave us. I mean, yeah, I think there's a massive misuse of communication channels today, which is massively draining. So you got like the drainers of energy, you got the maintainers of energy, and you got the boosters. And it's for us to preserve our energy and decide, okay, so which drainers can I actually remove? Which ones? But if it's your boss in a corporate organization, it's sort of reframing the question: what is it? How can I transform the conversations that we have to transform the relationship that I have with my, I hate the word boss anyway, it's leader, with my, my reporting line, to sort of bring up the energy. And I mean, I'm a limitless optimist, and I believe anything is possible. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah. Do you know something? It's what I really love is multiple times already in less than 8 minutes, Deborah, you've brought some really actionable insight. And what a great invitation for anyone watching us now or to the recording later. Who are those energy drains? Who are those people that boost you up? And I just love that example. Like, even if you've got a line manager, let's call it, or leader, that maybe you're not fully aligned with, how can you show up differently or ask different questions to try and at least get what you need out of that relationship? I think it's just a brilliant, brilliant insight, Debs.
Yeah, because I think otherwise we just roll our eyeballs and go, oh no, here he goes again, or here she goes again, and da-di-da-di-da, and then it's just backstabbing, and then you go to the coffee machine or the water cooler, and then it's like, rah, 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 rah. And you're just like, really? Like, really? Are we still in the playground? No, we're not. So I mean, I really do believe that, you're the one who said change is an inside job. So, well, let's make it happen on a daily basis, and let's hold ourselves accountable. To sort of stop and go, right, okay, rather than always like criticizing and complaining and all the rest, which is all low vibrational. Okay, so what can I do to get a different reaction out of the person that I'm interacting with? What can I do? What can I do different? How can I be different? And I think that invites the other person who's so used to knee-jerk reactions with you to go, oh, hang on a minute, I don't expect that. And then you're kind of destabilizing the knee-jerk reactions that they usually give you. And that person is going, oh, I'm not sure how to respond to this one. It's like, well, it's okay. Let's explore. Let's go into this unknown territory together. Because innately, I believe that we are human beings that are innately givers and carers. Otherwise, we would be extinct, no?
Yeah. So we wouldn't have got this far otherwise, would we? Let's be completely honest. I love and I love how you weave that back to where the answer to the initial question. Just brilliant. I'm flashing across the bottom of the screen Deborah's website, which is leadingdragons.com. Go and check that out. Go and connect with Deborah. As you can see already, one of the things I love most about you, you've got this massive heart, Debs, but you're also really practical. And that's not always a blend that you see. So I just don't see it that readily. You've got people that are super, super heart-led or super, super logical, but don't always necessarily walk that tightrope with such ease. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about Leading Dragons, or relative ease. I've seen you grow the last couple of years. So tell us a bit about Leading Dragons. What is Leading Dragons all about, and what's your invitation through Leading Dragons?
Well, Gary, yeah. Firstly, I really appreciate that what you said about being heart and also being pragmatic, and I just I think it's so important that we move into action. I think that we've done enough, overthinking. We've read enough books. We've gone on enough courses. Let's just now step into action. And the world needs, I'm just really generalizing here, but the institutions, the organizations, the schools, the hospitals, they do need a change. And we know anyway, because we can see what's happening. People are leaving their jobs, people are collapsing, people are burning out. It's becoming increasingly chaotic as people cling on to old paradigms, old structures. So we need to be stepping aside anyway, and we need to be creating the new, however we feel, but collectively doing it together and going, oh, shall we try this? Shall we try that? We need to try this. We need to try that. And so that's why I do so, and Leading Dragons is about that. So Leading Dragons first was it kind of just like burst open on the 24th of September last year. It's a podcast platform where I invite leaders. As you know, Gary, you're my second guest actually last year, my leading dragon. Because leading a dragon is it's not, I don't refer to the dragon as we typically depict it as in the Western culture, which is a harmful creature, but it's actually a fearless leader. It's a leader that stands in their power and reclaims their power and goes, right, actually, I need to take this on and be the change that I want to see, and take that little step forward or that leap forward, depending where you are in your life and what the circumstances that you're in. And so so the podcast series is not a think tank. It's more call to action, and it is hard. It is very hard to step out of your comfort zone. It's scary, yes, and fear is going to be there anyway. And it's for us to decide, and I'm going back to the low vibrational, high vibrational, which is, well, what do we want to do? We want to operate from a space of fear and fear-driven behaviors, from worry to stress, anxiety, job insecurity, which comes from that. Job security, because of jobs insecurity, we have worry, anxiety, and stress, criticism, and it goes and it contracts. And it is not easy, and I have done it. It's not like, oh, I'm there now, so there's no going back. No, it's continuously fluctuating all the time, because we're living beings, and we're never in a static environment. So it's that discipline on a daily basis. What is it that we can do to go, right, okay, today I'm going to take the courage, and I'll have fear on my left, and I'm going to harness that fear. And actually, I looked up the definition of the word harness, and it means to draw energy from. So rather than putting all your energy into fear and all the fear-driven, thoughts, emotions, behaviors, we actually do have a choice. And I'm not saying this lightly, but we do have a choice to go, okay, you know what? I've got fear over here. Okay, now I'm going to just do it. And it just doesn't happen instantly. Sometimes it does. It's just case by case.
I love so good. And I'm just trying to be super clever, Debs, while you're speaking, because I've got LinkedIn user, which I know now from just quickly checking LinkedIn is actually our good friend Tony McClelland. So morning, some of it's experience. People don't know how to maneuver around other people. So back to your previous point around sort of how do you get that energy level working for you personally? If people don't know how to, they sit in a place of frustration. So yeah, great point, Tony. Great ad. So with the Leading Dragons, Debs, what's your vision for this? Like, what do you hope? And again, it's just intention, it's energy, but like, what do you hope going through the rest of 2021 and into 2022? Are you looking to build community? Are you looking to do retreats? What's the sort of vision for trying to sort of bring people to a more dragon-like state?
Well, yeah. So naturally, so I've built the the growing Leading Dragons community, as you know. And we meet on Clubhouse every Thursday. And in a broader sense. So also it's really about serving others and others inside organizations. Because if we could have more dragons and help each other and raise each other, that's what we need. We'd be nobody. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for all my dragons, including yourself, Gary. And I'm really I feel very grateful for that and blessed. But if we could start finding dragons inside organizations that are already leaning towards, you know, the human-centric systems, and they have an open mind and an open heart, and they realize that the soulless, lifeless, orange organizations, which are really predominant in the corporate world, in the banking world, it's to bring those dragons inside those organizations to a place of courage where they're like, yeah, come on, let's all together. It's like, let's try this. Let's stretch. I mean, it's not really stretching your comfort zone. You need to step right out of it. You need to jump out. You need a leap of faith, and you need to go, right, okay. But then, you know, obviously, you can't do that on your own. You can't do that single-handedly in an organization. And and then, because once you're in that place together collectively, the group, the team would be able to start finding new structures and new ways of doing things that make sense, and finding new ways to self-organize, which would bring, and they would start operating from a place of courage and bring the soul back into the organization. And that's what organizations really need today, especially those who are trying to repurpose, rather than clinging, like I said earlier, desperately onto and operating from a space of survival, which is not going to get them anywhere. They're in complete denial when they could be operating from a space of courage and going, okay, we could start experimenting and doing it slowly, not just like, you know, not overnight. And you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's some good stuff from the old systems that organizations will want to keep.
Yeah, it's so fascinating this. So what I'm finding really interesting is, like, your community is brilliant. I was on the first call that you had with Leading Dragons. You know, you've got some really great people there. You've got Humans First community. You know, you've got Clubhouse communities. I myself, I didn't really feel part of any community, if I'm honest, until a couple of years ago when we first went to that Ignite conference together. And it's only been the last couple of years that I've really, honestly, opened up to community, because I was a lone ranger, like trying to do it on your own. You're trying to drive through, trying to disrupt it from the organization from the inside out. And all of that's really good stuff to do, trying to, you know, have these sorts of conversations. But it is so exponentially better and more exciting. And like you say, higher vibrational. We'll get more done if we do it in community. And I just love how this topic of community, virtual and in person, is absolutely erupting. Like the last couple of years. Are you seeing that as well? Or have you always been in communities, Debs, yourself? Or
yeah, I was quite an active feminist.
Okay.
For a few years, I was at the Professional Women's Network. I was on the board for 5 years. I think I think before, and not so long ago, perhaps even just 10 years ago, you know, being part of a community was a bit of a hippie thing. It was like on the side. It was like, okay, oh, you do that on top because that means because you've got extra time, you know, or, you know, whatever it is. And I just see the sense and the importance of belonging to community is taking center stage now, today, more than ever. And that's and never mind the pandemic that's just gone and amplified that importance. And just like you say, I think you know, I feel the same way as you do, Gary. You know, belonging to different communities, and see it, and always learning and growing together, and learning from each other. You know, and they're always surprises. I mean, there's practically no day in the last good year and a half that I haven't learned something from a community member, whether it was a community call or whether it was a one-on-one on the back of, or an introduction from a community member.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, for me, I mean, growth anyway is my number one core value. And so yeah, high five.
High five. And what's so powerful about that share, though, and again, I'm very new to this, Debs, is, and I'm not at all an expert, but the whole nature piece. This is where I'm really diving in as someone that works in the chemical industry, one of the most extractive industries on the planet, and realizing actually growth is an innate thing. Like I cleared the hedge this weekend, right? The hedge out the front of our house. You think, okay, it's going to take 20 minutes. It took me 2 hours, 2 massive jumbo bags to get rid. This thing weighed probably 30 kilos, and that was 6 weeks growth of a hedge. And it just really makes me think about growth in organizations, how often we suppress that growth because of the box of the role, or the not hearing the voice, or do you know what I mean? Like we are here, we are wired to grow, we are part of nature, yet so many systems and processes in organizations just suppress that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think also because the majority of organizations are built around a meritocracy system, where it's individual appraisal, individual evaluation. So they go off occasionally and have like team building away day. But it's like, oh, but actually in November when you have your appraisal, it's one-on-one, and I'm going to be appraising you, but you're not going to be appraising me. And it's like, why are we still doing this when? And also, as I'm a leadership facilitator, and I've worked up to groups of 60 people. The potential, Gary, in the group is just, it's humongous, it's huge. And I always feel so honored when I go into the room when I'm going to spend 3 hours with them or 3 days. I really feel that it's my, as a facilitator, that's for me to facilitate and bring up, the potential of the group, and collectively we can do so much more. And so that's, but then as long as organizations are organized in that way, where you got, one-on-one, appraisals, you got a reward point system, whatever it is, how can we shift? Or even if, it's a bit schizophrenic, because you're like, well, hang on a minute, we need to work as a team, but then, do you know what I mean? And wouldn't it be, yeah, anyway.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, you've got me on that. We're now in flow now. I've got another 7 minutes. We need to do it again soon. No, so I invite anybody watching us. There's a brilliant podcast by Whitney Johnson, the disruption theorist and the CEO of a company called Zoox, Debs. And Zoox are basically Zoox. They're one of the Silicon Valley software producers of the AI software that's going to go into autonomous vehicles as we get less traffic on the road. Oh, wow. These are the vehicles that are going to be, whizzing us around the world. She said, really linked to your point, everybody in Zoox gets an A or everybody gets an F. There is no in between. Like, that's it. Everybody gets an A or everybody gets an F. And when you think about the magnitude of that statement, and she then goes through these extra layers of how that comes to life. Like, this isn't just like a performative, everybody gets an A, everybody gets an F. Like, she goes through the importance of vulnerability, the importance of trust. And she says about the fact, if two people have got an issue with each other, don't bring that to me until you've had the conversation first. Like, as you said, really adult business that just seems to have been lost along the way.
Well, because, and also we can't be, bashing ourselves up. And like all the past, exactly, all the past generations, because we're here now because of them and thanks to them. And yeah. If we think, 10,000 years ago, we were organized, we were sort of self-organized packs, like wolf packs with alpha males. So we've come a long way since then. But because of and this is like 10,000 years ago, and for all this time, the human being has always been looking to conform to a system. So the responsibility has always been organizational, and it's rarely been on a collective, sub-collective space inside an organization or individual. Mm-hmm. And so we're having to shed these generations and generations of conforming to this system, this society, that society, what's good, what's bad, and all the judgments and all the beliefs and the narratives that come with it. And we have to shed so much of that to go, and I love it. I mean, but then we can accelerate that as well. We can go, okay, right, shed, let's, and I really do believe it's not just sitting and like pondering about it and writing about it and reading about it, but it's actually moving into that action. And, no matter how scary, it can be, and just go, you know what, let's just do this. Let's do this together. And obviously doing something scary together is already a lot easier than doing it on your own.
It's so beautiful. And I really want to hold a space for a moment for what you just shared, that shedding bit. Another way to say that is letting go. And that is really painful. Like, I've done quite a bit of that. Even it's like stopping a podcast. It can be, I want to bring this to life for the viewer. It could be like saying, I'm going to not do a podcast anymore. Or it could be saying, I'm not going to spend as much time with that person because they drain my energy. Like, it can be really small or it can be really significant, can't it? Like letting go, actually, no, I'm going to completely change my career. But it's a very conscious choice to let go, where it's a very unconscious choice to keep hold of, is what I found. I don't know if you'd agree or challenge that, Debs.
Yeah, definitely. And I go back to narratives, and I think there's been such a big, on the back of conforming always to societies, being brought up in these societies, in these systems, with these structures, and conforming to all of that, we're experiencing a massive disconnect. And we have to, I guess, like the increased burnout rates around the world, and people leaving their jobs. There's crisis happening on a lot of fronts today. Is because there's a huge, one of the pieces is a big disconnect from self. And just like you said, we just go about on autopilot until, you hit a wall or not, or there's some kind of awakening and you're like, oh my gosh, hang on a minute. Do I really believe what I believe? All the stories that I tell myself, do my stories define me? Or can I actually shift away from those? And it's also releasing friendships. And I've had to release 2 very old friendships in the past year. One was 10 years and one was 20 years.
Wow. Because
I had to, and this goes back to reconnecting with self and self-love. And sorry, Debs, you're going to walk your talk or you're not? Yeah, and then and it's hard. Change is hard, whichever way it is. It's hard. It's challenging, and I go back to the importance of community, because finding our tribe, it's a survival system as well. Survival. It's much more than a survival. It helps, and helping and supporting one another during these times is just, for me, it's like indispensable today.
And brilliant with technology, and as you say, we have come so far so quickly in many ways. But when we look at, I love seeing the post about your wonderful, wonderful daughter and how she's thriving. But I think about, her at her age and my kids, my stepkids, and it's not it's not too sensationalist to say we probably have got 20 years to properly redesign the systems so that we come from the place that you're talking about of care, understanding, empathy, and build products that are in line with that, operate society that's in line with that. Because what's been the last 100 years, that we literally won't be here in 100 years if we carry on with the same mechanistic thought process. We just won't be. Earth can't sustain it. Like, there just isn't the resources. Like, fact.
Yeah. No, but that's true. And in fact, you're mentioning my daughter. I have, so the next Leading Dragons Clubhouse Room is on Thursday. It's always on Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT. And this upcoming one, I scheduled it yesterday, and it's would you send your child to work where you work?
Wow.
And I was like, and I'm thinking, Gary, like, can you imagine if that was the one and only KPI that organizations work towards? Like that everything that they did and how they organized themselves and how they made decisions and how they leveraged their collective intelligence, all that and much more, and bringing the soul into organizations as well as the heart and the mind, because we can't diss the mind, we need our mind as much as, you know, what about if that was the one KPI? And for people to go, yes, actually, I do want to send my child to work where I work.
Well, excuse me. Wow, what a way to wrap up. Wow. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to be looking to get along this Thursday. I think it's a brilliant conversation. Brilliant conversation to be having. And yeah, absolutely. Like you say, get rid of all the noise. Yeah, we understand why we measure what we measure today. I'm not saying it's necessarily healthy all of the time, but we understand why we do it. What would it look like just to focus on that KPI? Wow. I think it's a brilliant provocation, Debs. Brilliant provocation.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? It would be so, yeah. And like you say, we don't have much time. And I do have, and I think similar to you, Gary, you know, I just feel that sense of urgency. Let's just get on and do something. Let's do it. Let's move into action. And, you know, if we make mistakes along the way, it's no biggie, right? Because we're doing something and because we're working towards creating and, you know, experimenting and creating new systems that are going to work better and be much more sustainable.
So good. And of course, failure, mistakes is way easier in community than doing it. It hurts a lot more on your own.
Yeah, because there's no finger pointing you.
Just brilliant. Deborah, thank you for sparing your, I hope if you're watching now or you watch this back, follow Deb's work, leadingdragons.com. You're an amazing human. Thanks for all you're doing.
Gary, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
All the